Did you realize that each morning, the instant your eyes open, you are presented with something extraordinary? A blank canvas on which you can paint the story of your day? It is a fresh, unspoiled beginning, an open invitation to consciously design the kind of experience you want to inhabit. And yet, for so many of us, these golden opportunities slip quietly through our fingers. We allow the small frictions of life, the traffic jam that stretches endlessly ahead, the unexpected drizzle that ruins our carefully chosen outfit, the sour mood of a stranger or colleague, to dictate how we feel. We hand over the paintbrush to circumstances, letting them decide the color, tone, and texture of our day. But what if I told you that you are the artist, not the bystander? What if I told you there is a way to take back that brush, to reclaim control so fully that you could move through the world as if nothing, no rude comment, no sudden inconvenience, no storm on the horizon, could truly bother you? Sounds idealistic, maybe even impossible, but it is far from a fantasy. We've all heard the phrase, "don't sweat the small stuff." It's a familiar piece of advice, tossed around so often it risks becoming meaningless. But here's the thing. From the perspective of the mind, there isn't small stuff and big stuff. There's just stuff, input, events, signals. You are the one who decides how to frame that input, how to interpret it, and ultimately how to respond. Let's say you're driving to work and a car swerves abruptly into your lane, forcing you to brake hard. Your pulse spikes, your chest tightens, and before you can think, you're muttering choice words under your breath. By the time you reach the office, the mood has followed you in like a dark cloud, infecting your thoughts and interactions. And yet, and here is the startling truth, nothing physical happened to you in that moment. You weren't injured, your car wasn't damaged, and your day wasn't objectively ruined. What changed was your internal state, your perception of the event. The mind judged it as hostile or disrespectful, and your body reacted accordingly. The question is, did that moment have to ruin the rest of your day? Or could you have met it with a different choice, a different response entirely? That is where the practice begins, with the recognition that every reaction you have is optional. Our bodies are wired for survival, which means that the smallest perceived threats can trigger the same chemical cascade that would once have saved our ancestors from predators. We feel the rush of adrenaline, the tightening in the muscles, the quickening breath, the classic fight or flight response. And while that served us well when danger was a matter of life and death, it is often unnecessary, even harmful, in the context of modern life. But here's the empowering part. You can interrupt that cascade. You can catch the moment when the emotional charge starts to build, and instead of letting it sweep you away, you can short-circuit it. At first, it takes conscious effort. Over time, with repetition, it becomes a new default setting. When you learn to act as if nothing bothers you, you are not pretending or suppressing. You are embodying what I like to call the ultimate life force traits, qualities that allow you to remain steady, poised, and internally free, regardless of the storm outside. One of these traits is imperturbability, the capacity to meet any situation without losing your center. It is the opposite of being easily rattled or thrown into emotional chaos. Another is unflappability, that quiet, graceful resilience that lets you move through life without your feathers ever truly being ruffled. These are not qualities we're either born with or without. They can be cultivated, strengthened, and made second nature. So how do we begin to embody them? The first step is awareness. Deep, unshakable self-awareness. You start noticing the tiny sparks before they become flames, the initial twinge of irritation when someone interrupts you, the faint ripple of anxiety when plans change unexpectedly, the subtle tightening of your jaw when the barista gets your order wrong. In these moments, you have a choice. You can grip that feeling, feed it with mental commentary, and let it define the next stretch of your day. Or you can pause. Take a slow, grounding breath. Feel the weight of your feet against the earth. Remind yourself with deliberate clarity, I will not let this bother me. I am in control of my state of being. At first, this may feel mechanical, even forced. You might speak the words through gritted teeth, still feeling the undercurrent of frustration. That's okay. Every skill begins with conscious effort. The key is to keep showing up for the practice. Eventually, that pause becomes instinctive. You will catch yourself mid-reaction and pivot with ease. You will find that situations which once sparked hours of low-grade irritation now barely register. The small stuff will no longer have hooks in you, and you will discover, almost to your surprise, that most of life's irritations fall into that category. Here's where the magic deepens. When you consistently meet life from this place of centeredness, your external world starts to shift in subtle yet profound ways. The same traffic still exists. The same unpredictable people cross your path, but they land differently. You are no longer playing the same emotional game, and so the game itself changes. It's as if you've stepped onto a higher frequency, one tuned to ease, clarity, and creative choice rather than reactivity. Begin simply. Throughout the day, notice the micro moments when annoyance begins to creep in. The email that arrives with a passive-aggressive undertone, the coffee you spill on your shirt, the line at the grocery store that moves at a glacial pace. Each is an opportunity. Pause, breathe, choose again. Let the words, "I am not going to let this bother me," become a mantra, a gentle but firm anchor back to yourself. With time, you will not only react less, but recover faster from the moments when you are thrown off balance. Over weeks and months of practice, you'll find something remarkable happening. Challenges remain. Life will always serve them up. But you will meet them with a calm, grounded presence that feels almost unshakable. The storms still blow, but you are no longer a leaf tossed helplessly in the wind. You are the deep-rooted tree, flexible yet unbroken. You begin to see that the control you sought over external conditions was never necessary. The real mastery is in controlling your internal state, and from there, influencing the outer world in far more effective and graceful ways. Make a quiet commitment to yourself today. Decide that you will no longer be at the mercy of every passing irritation. Commit to developing the traits of imperturbability and unflappability, not as some lofty spiritual ideal, but as practical tools for a better, freer life. This is not a denial of difficulty or pain. It is a reorientation toward them. You are not numbing out or pretending not to care. You are choosing to meet life as it is, fully, openly, and without surrendering your peace. The truth is, the moment you start embodying this, you not only transform your own experience, but become a silent inspiration to those around you. Your steadiness becomes a refuge for others, a reminder, often unspoken, that real strength lies not in force, but in the calm, centered presence that can weather any storm. And from that place, you are free to create a life that is no longer shaped by the whims of circumstance, but by the deliberate choices of your own unwavering spirit. One of the most persistent traps we fall into on this journey is becoming entangled in the story our minds create about events. Something happens. Perhaps a colleague makes a remark that feels dismissive, or a stranger cuts ahead of you in a line. And before we've even consciously registered it, the mind begins weaving a narrative. How disrespectful. They shouldn't have done that. This always happens to me. People just have no manners anymore. With each passing thought, the emotional charge intensifies. We aren't merely experiencing the original moment anymore. We're now living inside the mental movie we've created about it, replaying the scene with extra dialogue and imagined motives. The more we rehearse this version, the more real it feels, and the harder it becomes to let go. But here's the liberating truth. These stories are not reality. They are interpretations, often exaggerated, sometimes entirely invented, layered on top of the raw, neutral facts of what occurred. If we can learn to gently step back from the narrative and observe what is actually there without embellishment, we can dissolve much of the unnecessary tension before it even takes root. Take the example of being cut off in traffic. In its simplest form, the fact is, a car moved into my lane. That's it. Everything beyond that, they're reckless. They don't care about anyone else. Now I'm going to be late is an add-on created by the mind. This is not to deny that reckless driving can be dangerous or inconsiderate. but rather to see that our suffering is amplified not by the event itself, but by the meaning we assign to it. When we strip away the added layers and meet the situation in its bare form, it loses much of its emotional grip. We can respond practically if needed, slow down, adjust our position, without spiraling into a storm of irritation that stains the rest of the day. This is one of the most valuable skills you can develop, the ability to meet life without the burden of unnecessary commentary, to see events clearly and choose your engagement consciously rather than reactively. Another transformative approach is to begin reframing challenges as opportunities for growth. This shift is subtle but powerful. Instead of thinking, "Why is this happening to me again?" When faced with a frustrating moment, you might instead think, "Excellent, here's a chance to practice my imperturbability." The moment that would once have felt like a test you didn't sign up for becomes a gym session for your emotional and mental muscles. You can start to meet annoyances with curiosity rather than resistance. That spilled coffee? Perfect practice for letting go quickly. The delayed flight? A chance to deepen your patience. The colleague who interrupts you mid-sentence? An opportunity to stay grounded while calmly reasserting your space. Each instance becomes less of a personal affront and more of a training exercise in the art of remaining unshaken. What makes this more than just a mental trick is the fact that, over time, you are literally rewiring your brain. Our default reactions are the product of well-worn neural pathways, connections strengthened by repetition over years, even decades. Every time you react with irritation, you reinforce that pathway. Every time you pause, breathe, and choose calm instead, you start to carve a new one. At first, the old routes may feel stronger and more tempting, pulling you back toward familiar patterns. But with consistent practice, the new pathways grow, becoming smoother, quicker, and more natural to travel. Eventually, the habit of staying centered replaces the habit of being thrown off balance, and your baseline emotional state shifts toward steadiness. This inner transformation doesn't just change how you experience the outer world, it changes what you attract in the first place. You've probably noticed that when you're in a tense, irritable state, more little annoyances seem to find you. It's as though your energy sends out a signal inviting more of the same. But when you operate from a grounded, unbothered space, the opposite begins to happen. The kinds of situations and people who used to trigger you seem to cross your path less often. And when they do, they have less staying power. They touch the surface of your awareness like a pebble dropped into a vast, calm lake, creating ripples that fade almost as quickly as they appear. As you deepen into this practice, you'll notice another remarkable change, the ability to let go of emotional residue almost instantly. Before, if something upset you, you might carry that irritation like an invisible weight for hours or even days, letting it leak into conversations, thoughts, and decisions. Now you may still feel the initial sting, but it passes quickly, leaving no lasting imprint. This is not emotional suppression, quite the opposite. It's allowing emotions to arise fully without clinging to them. You let them flow in, through, and out of your system, like waves that swell and recede. The difference is that you no longer grab the wave and try to hold it in place. One of the most freeing realizations you'll come to is that nothing outside of you can truly disturb your inner state unless you grant it that power. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that our moods and emotions are at the mercy of external events, the weather, the traffic, the behavior of others. But the reality is that the locus of control is always internal. No one and nothing can make you angry, anxious, or upset without your participation. That doesn't mean you won't feel the initial spark of emotion. You will, because you are human. But whether that spark turns into a wildfire or fizzles out harmlessly depends entirely on what you do with it in the next moment. The more you embrace this truth, the less reactive you become. Fewer things will bother you in the first place, and when something does, your recovery will be swift. You will find that you conserve enormous amounts of energy that would previously have been spent on stress and negativity. This surplus of energy becomes available for what truly matters: creative pursuits, meaningful relationships, personal growth. It's as though by sealing the leaks in your emotional energy system, you've reclaimed a vast reserve of power that was always yours but constantly slipping away. Ancient wisdom traditions have long celebrated this state of inner steadiness. In many cultures, the highest aim of spiritual practice was not to escape life, but to meet it with unwavering equanimity, to remain centered in both gain and loss, pleasure and pain. The sages knew that when you stop being tossed around by every wave, you become the architect of your life rather than a victim of its weather. You live not in reaction to circumstances, but in alignment with your own inner compass. And this is where the journey becomes not just a personal practice, but a spiritual one. Every challenging moment becomes a sacred training ground. Every emotional trigger becomes an invitation to anchor more deeply into your own center. This is not to say you'll reach some mythical point where you're never challenged again. Life will continue to bring its full range of experiences. Moments of joy, moments of frustration, moments of uncertainty. The difference is that you'll navigate them from a place of grounded clarity. You'll develop the ability to move fluidly between action and stillness, engagement and detachment. You'll no longer be defined by the turbulence around you, but by the steadiness within you. And from that steadiness, you'll find that you can engage with the world more fully, more creatively, and more compassionately than ever before. At the heart of this entire practice lies a radical shift in perception, the understanding that events themselves are neutral. They are not inherently good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, until we assign them those labels. What changes from person to person and moment to moment is the lens through which we view them. A single circumstance can be a blessing to one person and a burden to another, depending entirely on the story told about it. Think of something as simple as a child-proof cap on a medicine bottle. To a child, it's an infuriating obstacle, an unnecessary complication that keeps them from what they want. To a parent, it's a relief, a safeguard that protects their child from harm. The cap hasn't changed, only the meaning assigned to it has. When we begin to recognize that the same applies to nearly every event in life, we start to reclaim extraordinary power over how we experience reality. This shift does not mean becoming numb or indifferent. You are not a stone, immune to feeling. Emotions are part of being human. They arrive like weather systems, shifting and moving through your inner landscape. But the key is to change your relationship with them. Instead of treating emotions as permanent fixtures, like furniture in a room you're forced to live with, you begin to see them as temporary visitors. They arrive, they stay for a time, and then they leave. You don't need to slam the door in their faces or try to lock them inside. You simply allow them to pass through without making them the owners of your space. This allowing is not passive resignation, it is active presence. The next time anger flares up or irritation tugs at your attention, see if you can pause before reacting. Notice where in your body the sensation lives, the tightening in the chest, the heat rising in the face, the knot in the stomach. Let yourself feel it fully, without attaching the mental commentary that usually accompanies it. The more you can observe the sensation as pure energy, the less it will pull you into its storyline. Like a cloud passing across the sky, it may momentarily shade your view, but it cannot block the sun for long. Over time, you will notice something remarkable. The triggers that once seemed to have a direct line into your nervous system lose much of their potency. It's not that the world changes. People will still behave unpredictably, plans will still shift without warning, inconveniences will still arise. But your relationship to those events transforms. You stop leaking energy into unnecessary reactivity. You stop giving away your peace in exchange for the fleeting satisfaction of being right or justified in your frustration. And in doing so, you gain an entirely new level of personal sovereignty. This is the deeper invitation of the practice, to stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start living as the conscious creator of your inner state. The more you anchor into this, the more you realize that peace is not something you have to wait for. It's something you can choose now, in the middle of any storm. And when you begin living from that truth, you naturally start to attract more experiences that resonate with it. It's not magic, it's alignment. When you stop feeding the energy of irritation, conflict, and chaos, you simply stop participating in the cycles that generate them. What's more, the benefits extend far beyond your own experience. As your steadiness becomes more natural, it radiates outward. People around you begin to notice. They may not be able to put it into words, but they feel it. The grounded ease, the absence of unnecessary drama, the way you seem unshaken by the same turbulence that rattles everyone else. In a world where so many are caught in loops of reaction, your calm presence becomes a kind of lighthouse, silently reminding others that there is another way to live. This is how change spreads, not through preaching or demanding, but through embodied example. Eventually, you begin to see that the state of acting as if nothing bothers you is not an act at all. It becomes your natural way of being. This is not because life has stopped throwing challenges your way, but because you have stopped giving those challenges permission to define you. You move through the world with a quiet confidence, rooted in the understanding that your worth, peace, and clarity are not dependent on the behavior of others or the arrangement of circumstances. They are yours by right, part of your essential nature. From this place, you can participate in life more fully than ever. You can feel joy without clinging to it, sadness without drowning in it, anger without being consumed by it. You can engage deeply with the people and situations around you while still maintaining your center. And perhaps most importantly, you can make decisions from clarity rather than from the haze of emotional turbulence. This is not about detachment in the cold sense, but about freedom. The freedom to choose your responses, the freedom to live aligned with your own values no matter what unfolds. In the end, this journey is not about perfection. There will be days when you are pulled off center, moments when the old habits of reactivity reappear. That is not failure. It is simply another opportunity to practice. The measure of progress is not in never being triggered, but in how quickly and gracefully you return to yourself when you are. Over time, the return becomes swifter, the pull of old patterns weaker, the space between stimulus and response wider. And in that space, all your power resides. So make the commitment, quietly, firmly, and with compassion for yourself. Commit to meeting life from your center, to refusing to let every bump and ripple dictate the quality of your inner world. Commit to seeing each challenge as a training ground for your imperturbability, each inconvenience as a chance to strengthen your unflappability. Know that this is not a linear path, but a living practice, one that unfolds in the midst of real life, with all its beauty, chaos, and unpredictability. If you walk this path long enough, you will find that the phrase, acting as if nothing bothers you, becomes unnecessary. You won't be acting. You will simply be living from the recognition that nothing has the power to disturb the essence of who you are. And from that place, you will discover a deeper joy, a richer peace, and a freedom that cannot be taken from you.